52 every day, no rain. It was great. We really caught the break. I mean, usually you get rain and mist and everything. It was great the whole week. We had a wonderful family vacation.
Hmm. Nice. Okay. Well, I guess we can just start and kick things off. Carrie, this is your cue to like cut the recording right here. So I just want to say, first of all, thank you all for being here. Great turnout, love it. So we're happy to have three wonderful panelists here from Roanoke, Virginia. They're quote unquote seasoned professionals in the marketing and advertising sphere of things. And we're just really happy to have them here sharing their experience, sharing maybe what it's like to be, you know, our age of an attitude age and what, got them here, what got them here today, what steps they might have taken, all the highs and lows that it takes to get to where you are at in the marketing sphere at Roanoke and just everything else under the sun. So we're going to just go ahead into introductions. We'll just start with our team and I'll say hi. I'm Charlotte. I'm the former At2 Roanoke president. I'm here today with a few of our other board members. So if you're here, maybe just like unmute and wave and say what you do. I'll start with Brenda here since she's our new president of At2 Roanoke. So Brenda, if you want to take it from here.
Sure. Hi, nice to meet you. I'm the new president for After Roanoke, and we just want to say thank you all for joining this webinar, and we hope that you learn a lot today, a lot of insights from the speakers. I'm the president. We have Laura, who is our vice president.
Hi guys, my name's Laura and I'm the vice president. And yeah, thank you guys so much for coming out. And I'm really looking forward to hearing what everybody has to say.
Great. We also have Jess. She is our education board member as well. And after Jess introduces herself, we'll go around to introduce the speakers.
Hello, I'm Jessica. I'm the education chair of Ad2. So I'm pretty much just here to keep in communication with some of the local schools around the area.
Well, we'll just jump right into our panelist board. Bruce, did you want to kick things off here for us?
Sure. My name is Bruce Bryan, and I was a TV advertising, I guess, executive for 20 some years. And then during the Great Recession, started 5 Points Creative. It was known as B2C Enterprises. It was my dining room table and me. And then we navigated through the first 10 years or so, and then actually doubled in size during COVID. And I don't know what we're calling these days. So I don't want to even venture a guess. We could use a branding session, but we're poised to see what happens next. 5 Points Creative is a full service marketing firm, and there aren't many of those around anymore. Most companies, it seems like, are focused on certain areas. And we're doing work in a wide, that's the other thing, is that we do work in a lot of different industries, and we like the variety that brings. And we got about maybe a dozen employees. Most of them are here in Roanoke. We have 3 in Richmond and 1 in Charlotte and 1 in Memphis. So.
Oh, all right, Mark.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Mark Chang. I'm the Director of Business Development for the O'Connor Group. The O'Connor Group is like 5 Points. We're a full-service marketing agency, and it's been around a while. It's founded by a man named Bill O'Connor, who came from corporate communications. It's now owned by 2 of his former vice presidents. It's woman-owned, and we're pretty small. We have about 6 or 7 people, depending on the time, the day of the week. We do have some people who work remotely. Since we onboarded our new designer She lives in Knoxville, and so now we do a lot of things remotely. You know, we have a lot of remote tools that we developed, you know, by necessity during the pandemic. And so that's helped us become a, you know, organization that, while a lot of us do work here in Roanoke, we do have some people who work outside the area. And actually, our main web developer, who did live in Roanoke when she moved to Raleigh for a family situation, she stayed in touch with us that way. And as being the digital web developer, it all worked great. So, you know, we're well accustomed to that. As for me, I actually come from I actually worked in Hollywood for a while. I've done advertising and marketing most of my career, and so I've lived in California, I've lived in Richmond, and I'm glad to be here in Roanoke.
Great. Well, then we'll pass it off. Last but not least, Todd.
Yeah, I'm Todd Markham. I was co-founder of Access with Tony Pierman. Tony and I remain great friends. About 5 years ago, he bought out my part of Access, and now I just do freelance marketing consulting. I have about 5 clients that I've had very long term, most of them 10 years or more, and I pick up a new job here and there. I moved to Roanoke right after college. It was just the first place I found a job, and I thought, you know, given in 6 months, I can talk my wife into moving into New York. And she thought, in 6 months, I can talk Todd into moving back to Kentucky. And this was just where God intended us to be. We've been real blessed here. So, you know, I've spent my whole career here, and I've worked for the WSLC, WSLQ, which is now the Wheeler Group. Worked for the Roanoke Times when the newspaper was a thing. You know, spent 20 years in agency, worked very briefly for the O'Connor Group. But you know, it's just been a wonderful career, you know. So that's sort of my story to this point. It's just me now. I do have some freelancers. I work a lot with Michael Craighead and a couple of other people, but most of the time I spend with my dog on my screen porch, and that's where I work every day.
Awesome. Well, I love that. Well, great. Well, it sounds like we knew this. We have a great lineup of panelists here today. So yeah, we'll just jump right into the Q&A session. Got a few questions here for you guys. So just whoever wants to answer first. We'll start with why Roanoke? So what impact have you made on the region? What impact has the region made on you or what you do?
Well, shall I start? And we're all being very cagey about it.
Go for it.
So as I mentioned, you know, my wife and I, Roanoke was kind of our last place in our little peripatetic life to begin with. You know, I grew up in Richmond, so this is not an unfamiliar place to me. But we worked, you know, we moved around. We went to California, lived out there for a while. My wife was a second career attorney, so she went to law school in her 30s, and we kind of lucked into Roanoke. This is where she got her first judicial clerkship. You're supposed to take the first ones offered to you, and I'm really glad it was Roanoke and not some other backwater that we could have gone to. Roanoke is wonderful because, especially having come from a big city, it's very manageable. And especially since we had a small child when we moved here, we found that getting around is just so easy. We have maybe not all of the amenities of a large first tier city, but we have most of them. And the trade-off of being able to, you know, drive from one end of the metropolis to another in 30 or 40 minutes it really does a lot for quality of life and time you can spend with people. Even now that I'm, you know, driving to Blacksburg, I have a client that I serve in Blacksburg 2 days a week. It just doesn't feel like I'm spending all my time in the car, and that's really wonderful. As far as what impact I've made on the region, I have no idea. But it is because it is so livable. You know, things like, you know, this, or serving, you know, I'm on the board of the Grandin Theater, which is a wonderful nonprofit first run old movie palace that a group of concerned citizens, rather than let it go to seed, you know, turned into a nonprofit and refurbished it. and it's pretty much the best place to see movies in the area, and it's wonderful to have. So being able to serve on things like that, and then serving, on boards at my church, it's made more manageable by having everything being, close in. And I do feel like when we were talking beforehand, people talked about meeting in the parking lots. And so even though I live out in the country now, I used to live in the city. And every time I come back in for 4th of July or a Symphony Under the Stars, I'm guaranteed to run into people I know. And it's a very collegial, communal space. And I just love it.
Great.
Yeah, I found myself in Roanoke during college. This is all probably before any of you were twinkles in the eye, but there was a thing called Reaganomics, trickle down economics, and there was no jobs to be found. I sent out 80 resumes. I'll be honest, I was a pretty average college student at best. I had some talent, but I was not very motivated. Finally, the first job I found was in Roanoke. We didn't know anyone. I had a lovely girlfriend who is now my wife of 41 years, and we got married, got in the car, and drove to Roanoke. From there, the reason we stayed in Roanoke is we just made connections. And when you're in the place you need to be, call it God, call it the universe, call it whatever you want to, but you will know that you're in the place you need to be. And we made friendships. We had opportunities, grow from that. And I wasn't an overnight success by any stretch of the imagination. It took me a good 10 years to find my footing in the industry, but it happened, and it happened in a big way. We've been real fortunate. If I had to say, the upside to Roanoke is that I can really be involved in the community. Things have been great as far as that goes. I can really make an impact on the people and the lives and the organizations I serve in. The downside, quite frankly, is I always wanted to work on a Snickers campaign. I always wanted to work on a real national campaign. And while I could say things like, yes, I have done work for Advance Auto. Yes, I have done work for Kroger. I never did a national campaign, a real national campaign. The upside is that I was able to do work that actually moved the needle for small companies, that they would come to me and they say, thank you. I trust you. I believe in you. I believe in what you're telling us. And it's made a difference in our company. You don't get the chance. I know people who work for the JWTs of the world and that kind of thing. And you don't get that impact. You don't get that direct relationship when you're closer to the client like we can be. And as far as the biggest difference I've made, Tony and I did work for almost every significant capital campaign in the Roanoke Valley for 20 years. We were very involved in the D-Day Memorial being built. We were very involved in the Jefferson Center being refurbished. Virginia Tech's first $1 billion campaign we were involved in. That's big. What's bigger to me is though that we were able to help a lot of people pay their mortgages, put their kids through school. It is a different kind of advertising career if you choose to live your life here, but it's a wonderful one if you embrace it.
Yeah, so the place you want to be and feeling it, it's really interesting because I was 44 when I found the career that I wanted, but I didn't know it. I thought I had the career I wanted from age 22 to 44. I actually, like you, Todd, started in Roanoke at the first job that I could get. There was a little TV station on Colonial Avenue. It's across from that really good Mexican restaurant that's by the Honey Baked Hams. And it's a little building. It's Miller and something now. And it used to be a TV station. And I was a master control operator and a switcher, production assistant. I was trying to get into the news business, but I had a face for radio, so I couldn't get into sports or news. And early on there, I actually edited film, Three Stooges, and Jimmy Swaggart recently died. We aired that show on Monday through Friday at 11 in the morning on our TV station. I had to sit through that show, which was fascinating. So nobody cares about that. But I was in the TV business on the production side and found out that my wife at the time was going to have a baby. And yes, Pueblo Chico. And but I like Alejandro's. That's a different conversation, though. The fish tacos at Alejandro's are next level, man. Like they're really good. But anyway, that wasn't what you guys came to hear about. So I switched into sales and I just kind of made a cold call to the sales manager's office. And I left Roanoke about a year and a half later. And I went up to the Midwest. I worked in 2 markets in Michigan and then in Toledo, Ohio. And in '07, the position I had at the TV station I was working at, long story, was eliminated. And I was going to start my own company in Toledo, and things just didn't quite work out. So I said, I better get a job. I had an interview in Wausau, Wisconsin, and it was in August, but it looked beautiful. But I knew that it wasn't going to be quite as beautiful in January and February. So I came down here to Channel 10, interviewed with them, and took the job in Roanoke because I'd already been here before and I knew the area. And I'll tell you, like, I didn't want to move. So again, in the TV industry in '09, different circumstances, connected to the print industry, the TV station I worked at owned a lot of newspapers and they were really struggling. So nobody really cared I was setting sales records, my team was, or that we had done a turnaround, like my 5th turnaround. There were no jobs in 2009. So I started my own company then. And Roanoke has been amazing to me. I say all the time, you can meet like 99 out of 100 people in Roanoke you can meet. If you say, hey, I'd like to meet this person, you can meet that person. I still haven't met the Fralin, whose name is on everything, but I know his daughter and both of his sons, and I bet you they would introduce me to them if I needed to meet him. But really, in Roanoke, you can get access to just about anybody that you want to talk to, and that's kind of cool. I feel like I was always involved in the community in all the cities I was at, but I feel like I've been able to make a difference in Roanoke, and that's one of the things I really like about it. So, like you said, Mark, I don't know what impact I've made, but kind of like you were saying about the Grandin Theater in 2015, 2016, I started in 2015. 2016, I was a part of a team of people that reopened the spot on Kirk, down on Kirk Avenue. And, we're going on 10 years now. So we're right on the edge of being an institution. And I know that's made a big difference. And like you said, Todd had a really good chance to impact a big variety of nonprofits. So we just celebrated our 15th anniversary, and we went through and looked at all the different nonprofits we had helped. And this is kind of crazy, but if you include full pro bono and partial pro bono work, it was 80 different nonprofits. So, I mean, how are you going to do that working for one agency in Chicago, Illinois, or working anywhere? I mean, 80 nonprofits. And so when you realize that, you start to think, all right, you may not have heard of me, but you know the people that we've been helping, right? So I love Roanoke for that. It's big enough to be interesting, but it's not so big that, just like Mark said, you can't get around and can't meet people, can't make an impact. So it's a nice little size.
That's a great thing that you guys are saying about Roanoke. It's just so small that you can actually give back. Now that you guys have been involved in the marketing field for so many years, and this webinar is also intended for younger generations or even people who are looking into coming to this field, we want to ask the next question. In your professional opinion, as experts in this field, what are the essential knowledge or key skills should young graduates and professionals in this area have? What are something that they should have, or yeah, in your opinion, to come into this field?
So I'd love to go first and just say, I think if you're on this call or on this Zoom, you're on your way. When I went to a new community, and Roanoke twice was a new community to me, and the other 3 cities that I was in, I got involved in the community right away, whether it was through Advertising Federation or other professional organizations or service clubs or nonprofits, Easter Seals, whatever it might have been. Giving back to your community without a goal of getting things in return always ends up putting you in a place where you get more back than you put in. So I would say if you're here learning and here trying to get better professionally, that's a big first step. And then I think the other thing is, man, you've got to have a willing heart. You've got to be open to whatever's next and to trying things you haven't done before. Trying things you haven't done before is the best way to start, I think, to find what you really want to do. I thought I knew what I want to do a couple times in my life. And I think if you are not fluid with your willingness to try new things, then it's really easy to get into a little bit of a rut or a track. So I guess those would be the couple things I would say.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's no substitute for curiosity and enthusiasm. You know, you've got to do that. As an employer, though, the one thing that I would love for you to do is come in and say, "This is something I bring to your team." You know, if I have a designer that comes in and says, "I can make good design," that's great. But I have 3 people who are already making good design. If I have enough work, I'll take a fourth one. But I don't. But if I have someone who comes in and says, "I can make good design," and I know how to do this I know how to program apps. I can do design and I know a little bit about AI. I've been playing with it and I can bring that to your organization. Bringing me something new is one of the things that really excites me. And that will put you in a different level at a different level than somebody who says, yes, I'm good at something that you already have somebody who is also good at. If there's a job opening, that's different. But if you're cold calling somebody, that's one of the best ways to get your foot in the door and make yourself memorable. Um, and you know, the one thing I would say is if you're lucky enough in your early career and to find more than one job, to find more than one opportunity, pick the boss, not the job. If you find the right boss early career, they will mentor you, they will help you, they will open doors with you, and they will understand when it's time for you to move on that you have bigger things. And they will take pride in that part that they played in your development. If you take a job that has a sexier title or whatever, that doesn't necessarily that may help you today, but it won't help you down the road. Pick the boss, not the job.
That's a great advice. What about you, Mark?
Wow, it's gonna be hard to follow that up. I think that I'm gonna echo first of all Todd's advice. I've always heard it in the negative, but the positive way sounds better. People, what is it? People leave managers, not jobs. So when I used to work I've done some work in HR and recognition, and that was one of the mantras that we always talked about is, you can keep people better if you're a good employer. So that's certainly true. And I benefited from that because Bill O'Connor is the founder of this firm. Definitely we worked very closely together and he developed, me and my creativity a lot. Back then I was a creative director at one time of this agency. And then I left and I became marketing director for another group for a while before I returned. The other thing too, and I think Bruce alluded to this, is always be curious. And I would add to that, and this is what I tell my kids are about the age where they're about to start their careers, and I say always say yes. Say yes when someone asks you, would you like to try this, or can we do this, or is there an initiative that we have this new initiative and it's really new and scary. It's an exciting time, when you're at the start of your career, to say yes to things, to try things. And if you fail, you've got plenty of time to pick yourself back up. One of the things I love about, Roanoke, is that, and I've worked in Fortune 500 companies, when I lived in bigger cities, and the mindset of somebody who works in advertising or marketing in Roanoke is so different, because we all have to be a little more of a self-starter. It's hard to survive as just an order taker. You have to kind of be your own little miniature entrepreneur, even if you have an employer calling the shots. So if you want to be part of a large organization and kind of have a fun badge, that's one thing. But I think being in Roanoke and being part of a smaller community and having more impact on things does require all of us to be a little more entrepreneurial, even if we work for an organization like once upon a time, Advanced Auto Parts. We had a lot of people in the advertising industry here working at Advanced Auto Parts, and before they moved their professional offices. That was probably the largest place you could work at. I guess we have, the various government agencies and the hospital systems, but I think everybody that I've met and I've enjoyed talking to in this community in marketing and advertising, and certainly on the creative side and even on the sales side, we all have to be little miniature entrepreneurs too. And I enjoy that because that's my personality.
Yeah, I want to part two just to say real quickly that in the years I was in television for 20 some years, and I've been doing this for 16. And my dad said one time, make your avocation your vocation. And I love that advice because I've always loved what I do. I didn't always love my boss, or actually most of my bosses were great. Oftentimes it was my boss's boss that was a struggle at some of the television stations. But I liked what I did, and I could find a reason to be excited about going to work every day. And that's pretty cool. And I think that's a blessing. And you're in a place in your lives where you can chart what you do next. You know, the world has changed where you have to work for the same company for 30 years. We have some younger employees here, and I realize this isn't going to be their last job, but you want to make it a good experience while they're here. And like I think it was Todd that had said, you want to situate them for success for that next place that they might go.
And for heaven's sakes, in Roanoke, Virginia, be nice to everybody you meet.
Oh,
The first guy that I interviewed with was doing freelance for me within a year.
I'm definitely going to echo that. One of the both advantages and perils of a smaller community is you can't, nor should you want to make enemies here. You will work with someone that you have helped. You will probably also work with someone that you have annoyed. So just be aware.
Probably the best insight so far here. I get that, yeah. Okay, well, perfect. Well, we're gonna jump around here, kind of echoing the first question here. From your experiences, what do you find, or what did you do that set you apart? How can the next generation be doing that too?
You know, honestly, one of the things that really helped me is I got involved with Ad too. And at the time we were doing a lot of pro bono advertising work. And you know, you don't necessarily get the chance to do really creative work, you know, on every occasion. But when somebody is having you do something pro bono, you get the chance to open up your creative influences and whatnot. And yeah, if I look back on it now, I'm sure it would embarrass me, but it is a great way to start. Plus, I made that connection, you know, with Tony Pierman, and I met working on pro bono projects for Ad too. It's funny because, you know, if you're in the creative field, you have people you can sync up with, and you have people you don't sync up with. I think David Hodge is one of the best creatives ever to work in this region. He and I worked together, and just the things that we liked weren't the same things. It didn't mean that either one of us were wrong or either one of us was bad. We just didn't have a good creative partnership. And Tony and I, for many years, had a great creative partnership because we would always be trying to up each other and almost always think what the other one was doing was cool. And how can I do that cool? You know, but yeah, you know, Ad two is one of those things. And there is nothing in the world wrong with saying, okay, I don't have, Add2 isn't doing any projects right now, but I'm interested and I support Casa Latina, for example, is an organization I work for. I'm just going to go see if they need anything. Do they need any letterhead? Do they need any posters? All these things are good. If you're going to like advertising as a career, love it as a lifestyle.
What about you, Bruce?
I would say through my career, I've been a day early and not a day late. And I learned that from my boss at that little TV station on Colonial Avenue, where I had a little it wasn't a Rolodex, it was a little card box with index cards, and it had the days of the month and the months of the year. And somebody would say, call me in mid-July, and I would call them on the 10th of July. And if they said, come by on Wednesday at 2, I'd go by Wednesday at 1:45. And I am not always on time now, but I mean, I try to like I'd have this feeling in my bones, I should go talk to that person. And I might put it off, and then I go talk to them. I'm like, yeah, I've been wanting to talk to you. And so the opportunity comes to the person who's available, right? So accessibility is the best ability is a kind of a funny little sports thing that people say. And I think that you know, being around is important, and you can't underestimate that. And of course, my background's a little different. I was not on the creative side. I was in the sales side. But I will say this, I am a creative person. I've come up with a lot of campaigns and come up with a lot of great ideas. I am not the person that's built the website. I'm not the person that's done the branding or whatever, but creativity is broader than just making great art. It's how do you solve a problem? And so work on your creative skills and figure out how to solve things in unique ways and to approach things in unique ways. Real quick, this is probably unrelated, but I was working at a TV station, so it had to have been in the mid aughts in like maybe 2005 or six. And at this station, there was another agency that was spending all kinds of money at a competing station, and I could not get them to invest in our station. And I was out cutting grass one day, and you know, was in the mindless time was on a tractor. I was in the country, and I was like, wait a second. I don't remember. I actually remember where I was in the yard. I turned off the tractor, went inside. It was before cell phones really. And I wrote myself, okay, what if we, and I wrote it down, went back out and finished cutting grass. So creativity is not just making incredible images or writing, which I do like to write, but it's about solving problems. And if you're a problem solver, there's always room for you. And if you're a day early, I cannot tell you many people I've met with that I've just tried to help them with their career path, and they'll come and they'll talk to me, and I always give them a little assignment. And if they never come back to me, then I'm off the hook. I'll never have to talk to them again. Bill keeps sending me people, and I've met with a couple of them, and the ones that I've helped a couple of them get jobs, you know. And sometimes you interview somebody and you scoop them up because you see that they could be a good part of your team. So that happens too, right? So be available and be coachable and be creative.
Yeah, I actually just read a interesting sales book. I'm not a salesman by training, even though I do some a decent amount of selling now. And really everything you do, whether it's a creative campaign or social media, you're solving someone's problem. They have a problem. They don't have enough engagement. They don't have enough sales. You're going into it to solve a problem, and if you go into it as a salesperson or as a creative director or a social media manager, your number one question is, how do I get out on the same side of the table as my client and help them solve their problem? And of course, the part of the problem is I have a certain budget that I have to meet, and those are just the realities of it. As far as what set me apart, I think the main thing throughout my career, and this maybe doesn't apply to everybody, is I just I went into I studied filmmaking at a time when nobody heard the idea of going to film school is not a thing. That's how old I am. So people did not just say, "Oh, I'm going to go to film school." I think most people in my high school, nobody even knew what film school was. And the reason I went into it is, I like to write, and I has had a reasonable amount of talent in the visual arts, and I was an amateur musician. And what field can I go into in which I can practice all of these things? And that's movie making. And then when I came out, I realized that having that movie making and having the writing skills and having the art skills made me pretty indispensable to a lot of people. And nowadays, things change so much. Everybody's a videographer, and a lot of them are frankly better than I am now. At the company I worked for a promotional merchandise company for a while as their marketing director. We had a lot of really marquee clients. I was traveling Silicon Valley and New York and just doing some really exciting things with them. And the owner of the company always had me do a sizzle reel. And this is at a time that, video was not, a de rigueur part of every pitch meeting. So I would do these sizzle reels, and, they really made a big impact. And I think that's one of the reasons that I was valuable to this organization, is not only did I write and do visual art, but I also did video, and I knew how to, do a video. So develop your skills, certainly. And I think I'll just add one more thing, and someone alluded to this, is be responsive. I know we live in the age in which, if you go for an interview, please send a thank you. At the very least, send a thank you email. A thank you gift is great too. A very early intern that I had at the promotional merchandise company, she, on her last day, I came back and I find a Starbucks gift card on my desk, and she wrote me a thank you note. And boy, if I ever meet her again, I'll definitely, at least talk to her. That was so thoughtful of her. And I think we'll find that thoughtfulness is not a given. A lot of people are not particularly thoughtful or considerate, and certainly not necessarily responsive. I think the general idea is that if things don't work out, for example, and someone says, sorry, but I don't have any openings for you today. The general idea is, well, that's the end of the conversation. But you have a part to play in closing that door in a way that leaves the door stop kind of jammed in the door. And I would definitely advise doing that.
Mark, that's such a good bit of advice. And the thoughtful part really applies across the board, not just in getting a job, but with your coworkers. Think about this. And if you're, Todd, you had, 20, 30 people that work for you. And there was always a quarter of them that were sick or had a death in their family or had a problem or an animal that was sick. And you never knew who they were. And everybody knew what they were going through, but nobody knew what you were going through. And so just being thoughtful is a really, really strong piece of advice. And it applies across the board. And I think the other thing is, I mentioned, Mark mentioned being responsive. I think you'll learn as you go when to be responsive and also when to be proactive. And it's okay to mix the two sometimes.
And
Great.
this really falls more into the hack as opposed to a thing that will help you. But trust me on this one. You are better off to be in the office before your boss than you are to stay at the office later than your boss, because your boss doesn't notice that you're there after he leaves. He notices that you're there when you get there. And it's one of those weird things. And I understand a lot of people aren't wired early, but find out when your boss is there. Always be there when your boss gets there. And it matters a lot less that, I've done a lot of work that was after 10 o'clock at night, after 11 o'clock at night. Nobody's there to see that, but everybody sees when you're the first one in.
Yeah. And don't be a brown noser by sending emails on nights and weekends to show everybody that you're working. That's weird and rude. You can write them on nights and weekends and schedule them in the morning. But Todd's right. Like people, especially people you're, probably going to be talking to and hired by, they are paying attention to things like that. It's good feedback, Todd.
That's great. We'll try to answer this question really quick because we're running a little bit of time out of time for the fourth question. But it's tied to this part of being interpersonal, right? Now, of course, when you guys started, it was a different time when you started in this field. Now things have changed. Technology has evolved. What are your thoughts on the recent and emerging technologies such as AI? And what would you recommend your professionals in the advertising and communication industry to use them effectively? You that have been in this field for a long time, do you guys have some thoughts?
Yeah, I'll be glad to start with that one. I think everyone's going to say the same thing. When something comes out, just go headlong into it, because if you don't, someone else is going to. Certainly as an oldster, I was skeptical of AI. Hey, I've seen, the Terminator and some movies like that.
You just dated yourself, Mark.
I know, the original Terminator too.
I'll be back.
I will say, and I can't take credit for this. My boss, who's on the AdFed board, she is our digital services director, and she has completely embraced and transformed a lot of what we do using AI and using it smartly. And clients that we have who I know are kind of old-fashioned, they love the idea of having for example, a GPT trained on their brand voice, but it takes time. It takes time to develop these things. And so it's not going to replace you if you have the knowledge to train this, as if you're training a brand new employee of theirs, in their marketing and department. So, there's always a place. You just have to establish where you add value to these new technologies so that it doesn't replace you, but you're the shepherd of this new tech. And I'm sure there's others too. Social media, I know a lot of people didn't understand how to manage social media as a tool when it first came out, and it's just a matter of finding those ways. So as I said earlier, always say yes and be fearless. And this is one of those areas in which I think we all have to be fearless.
Yeah. So, Mark, I'm going to go the other way and say I'm afraid, but I'm smart enough to put people around me that are not afraid. And then I also realize I'm using AI all the time. I just am not consciously, intentionally. And then you realize, man, it is so integrated in everything that you do. So I'm going to go to the old school and tell you that my dad in high school had me take a typing class, right? So I was in a like college prep, but then I also took this typing class with people that were not necessarily, on the college track. And I'm telling you, I still know how to type. I mean, I'm not a two-finger person. I type with, all the fingers. But then for graduation from high school, they gave me an electric typewriter, and you probably don't even know what that is, but it would let you fix some mistakes with whiteout and then type back over it. Well, guess what? Almost nobody uses a typewriter nor an electric typewriter. We all use a computer, and it spell checks for us and grammar checks for us. But you might have heard of some of us talking about earlier. Todd and I both written some books. Let me tell you what. AI still doesn't catch all the stuff, and they still don't understand how to speak in the voice of a 12-year-old or whatever. So I think it's going to eliminate some types of jobs, but if you're proactive and if you're responsive and if you're client focused and if you're approachable and all those other things that Todd and Mark have been talking about, there's going to be plenty of room for you. Honestly, there is. So I'm not afraid of it. I said I was afraid of it to kind of be silly, but we use it as well. But I would not let it drive what you do. I'd let it be a part of what you do.
Okay.
One thing that I would mention, and I could do an hour on AI. I'm very interested in it, and I've found it to be helpful. But one of the big things that everybody has to understand is it is programmed never to say, "I don't know." It will give you the best guess that it can based on the information. And I watched a very nice young man about your age make an introduction to a quasi-celebrity that was completely wrong in front of a room full of people because he had AI say, "Who is this guy? And can you write an introduction for me?" And nothing about it was right. It was, he felt so bad. The guy was very gracious about it, but remember, it is programmed to give you the best answer it can, but it can't say, "I don't know."
Yeah, you have to be in charge. I mean, and this is where showing up, like this is what I tell my kids is, make sure to show up. And if you're using AI as a substitute for basic research, you're not showing up. So, this is my one brag. One of the jobs that I did. In fact, this is interesting. I had left Hollywood. I didn't get to, meet that many celebrities. And my first job with this promotional merchandise company was doing bumpers for MTV. And I would just get a call. Speaking of working at night, I get a call at 11 o'clock at night saying, "Oh, some band was coming into the studio. Can you write them a bumper?" And I didn't know who they were. And so I would get online and watch all their videos, so I get a sense of who they were. I didn't ask AI, and even if I had, I'd want to know like what is their style, like who is their audience, and you can't get that from AI. You have to do the work of watching their videos, watching some of their interviews, reading some stories about who they were. I mean, I was so square. I didn't know who the Jonas Brothers were, and so I did the whole like investigation about okay, and if you find out who their audience is, and then once you do that, then you can actually go in and write something that sounds like it's going to come from them. And AI is not going to help you do that.
Okay. Well, thank you for sharing all those insightful advice. I've personally, with AI, I have found that too, that it lacks of essence sometimes, but it is very interesting to use too. Especially if you're writing. Um, well, Charlotte, if it's okay, we can open the door, open the door. Sorry, open the floor for questions. If any of the participants have any questions for our speakers regarding any of the topics that we have talked or any other interesting things that you may want to ask, you guys are more than welcome to interact with our speakers. Does anyone have questions?
I do.
Yeah, go ahead.
I just have one quick question, and this can be for any or all three of y'all. I'm just curious that in your careers, if there was a moment that you can share where you feel like you failed big time, and if it either like what you learned from it or how it shaped you in the future for your career. I'm just curious if any of you have any really cool stories that you could share.
Great question.
Are you
There's
hiring
so
for
many.
Google? Because isn't that one of the Google questions?
I actually have not. That's really
Okay,
interesting. I'm just
joking.
curious.
Go ahead, Bruce.
No, I don't. I'm thinking there's so many. I'm trying to think what somebody could learn from it though. Todd, you've never failed. You got any idea?
Oh gosh. Yeah. You know, I die a little bit every time I find a typo. And if you write a 70-page brochure, there's going to be a typo. There's always a snake under a rock. It's just a question of whether anybody turns over that rock. But literally, it kills me every time that I do that. You know, I don't know. I guess if I don't know that there's I do try to always build off of things that I learn. And you know, today I had a banner come back. It's perfectly fine, but it didn't suit me because it was the resolution wasn't crisp enough. And I'll probably have it redone, not because anyone will notice. It's a banner. People look at it far away, but I'll know it's there. You know, I can't point to anything that I would say was a huge failure, but you fail every day. If you take at bats, and that is the key to life. The key to life is going to bat with the bat in your hand and swinging your best. If you take at bats, you're going to have bad at bats. And you know, you try to take something away from them. I fail every day, and that is that's not a bad thing. Good things can, you know, what's the saying that experience is what you get out of something when you don't get what you want.
Here. The one thing I've learned is never hit reply all.
Oh, that is a good one. Yes. Okay. All right, Mark. Now you're reminding me of one where I failed, and that's good advice. So I was and Angie, this you'll like this one. I know you're not Carol, but you'll like this one. I was in Toledo, Ohio, working at an ABC station, and we had this oppressive media buyer in Chicago that was buying for Honda. And I was doing national television sales for ABC at the time. And she wrote me and asked for this outlandish thing, like I want free this and half price, and meant it seriously. And she 80 was her name, and she did this a lot. And this time I thought I was forwarding it to my boss, and I hit reply and I said, if she thinks she's going to get this, she is out of her mind, and hit send. So that counts as a fail, right, Mark? And we worked through it actually. She was cool. It kind of ended up working out okay because it was authentic, you know. But one of the things that I have been working on doing, earlier this year, I did a session for my team. We do a monthly professional development session. We've been doing it for about 4 years now, 4 or 5 years. And we did one on email management, which is hysterical because it's as boring as can be. But I asked around, and nobody had been to a class on it in high school or college. Nobody had ever really studied it. Nobody had gotten any coaching. I don't know, maybe you guys are all getting that from your companies. But what I realized was there were some best practices that I could put into place, and AI helped me figure out what some of the things I was doing right were and some other tips. But one of the hacks that I have, back to your hacks, Todd, is I oftentimes will make myself the BCC and not put anybody else's address in the address bar, and I'll write it, and then I'll go back and look at it again before I put somebody's name in and send it. Because it's so easy to, just like you said, Mark, hit reply all. And I know I built a long story on your big headline, but man, it is so easy to hit reply or reply all and then go, oh man, I didn't mean to do that.
Thank you guys so much. That was really cool. And yeah, that's a big fear. So I appreciate it.
Do we have any other questions for our panelists? Anybody? Okay, well, I have some questions, so I'm going to ask mine. So as we all know, the job market is not the greatest right now. So what do you think, and I mean, this can be for young grads, anybody just looking to make a career change, what is something that every single marketing professional should be prioritizing on their resume? And if you've been involved in the hiring process, maybe it's something that, you know, isn't something traditionally you're supposed to be looking for, you know, it's not, you know, that they just come in with a bright smiling face. Like, what is it that, you know, you're looking for on a resume that might, you know, like that, you know, that's going to stick with you when this person leaves the room?
Yeah, I'll kind of jump in here a little bit. So my boss, who is the Raki, who is the digital strategy director, in addition to co-owning the O'Connor Group, she started as Bill O'Connor's accountant. And one day, everybody knows Bill O'Connor, can probably imagine this. He comes like kind of barging into her office, and he says, "What do you know about this Facebook thing?" And she said, well, you know, she knows something about it. And he says, like, well, you know, get us on a Facebook, did figure out a digital, how do we do this digital thing? And so that's what she did. And she has built quite a career doing that. She even, I don't know if she likes me saying this, she even has some successful blogs that she actually makes a little bit of revenue off of. And it's not just the content that she writes. She actually, you know, does all of her magic with getting people to click on these things and optimizing them when people go search for these things. That the moral of that story is, you know, it's kind of building on some of the things we said before. I don't know if this is something that's a resume builder, but it's a skill that is, you know, you're ready to jump into anything new, because at some point, and in fact, interestingly enough, my roommate, who is now a software developer, when we were young, we were just out of college. I had an art degree, and I couldn't get a job at the local newspaper laying out class, you know, display ads. He did, and the reason is because this Quark Express. Oh man, I'm really dating myself now. The precursor to, you know, InDesign and these publishing softwares just came out, and he was the first person to learn it, and I didn't have any experience at it, and that made him valuable. So when a new technology or a new process comes out, I'd say that, you know, that has to be first and foremost, at least in your interview, if it's not going to be on the resume. Not for us in particular, but I do know that there's a lot of people who call me and ask me, what should I be looking for in my marketing department? And analytics, that's what I say. If you've got analytics skills, that's fantastic.
Oh, you're muted, Todd.
Hit the wrong button. Yeah, completely agree, Mark. And you know, don't cop out and say, well, I'm kind of bad at math. Analytics are not math. Analytics are understanding what the math informs. And if you are a bright, creative person, I mean, literally, it's a thing that you can understand the basics of it pretty quickly. So, you know, just don't you have unlimited. Everyone has unlimited potential. Don't be shy about saying, oh, I don't really know analytics. It gives you another club in the golf bag.
Well, and to get the interview, obviously it's related to resume or CV or whatever, and verbs work better than long descriptions. So, what are the action things that you've done? And you would be surprised at how many people fill out online, hey, I want to work for 5 Points Creative, and can't spell the name of our agency right. I mean, that's kind of an important thing. Make sure that you get called Bruce instead of Brian, all that stuff. I mean, so AI will help you, but you're going to have to actually, integrate thought with it as well to put your best foot forward. I saw somebody say a cover letter can make a difference. Knowing a person, most of the jobs that somebody are going to get, I say this to people a lot of times, the jobs that you might get are not going to come generally from filling out an application online. It's going to come from an introduction. If you want to go work at Carillion, you probably should go meet this person or that person. If you want to go, and so building those relationships, like we started the webinar, really comes full circle, because most people want to help you. They just need to know how to help you. And so getting the interview, you're going to get disqualified if you have typos in your resume, if your resume is boring, if, it's thoughtless. So go back to what Mark said about being thoughtful. If you're just thoughtful, you have a better shot of getting the interview. And then once you get the interview, you have the foot in the door, and you go from there. So.
I'm going to definitely latch on, since you're working as a brand ambassador, whether you're working for one company or you're working for an agency like we all have, you better get the brand right. Double check to make sure the spelling is correct, the capitalization. There's a lot of companies that have weird, capitalization. If you know that they have a competitor, for example, and that is a common word, don't use that word in your cover letter. Just these things, you got to think like a brand ambassador.
Super quick. You're trying to get the interview. You've gotten the interview. If you don't know what you want to do, then make sure that you define what you're trying to do in that meeting. Hey, I'm trying to hear more about your industry and what you've learned so I can decide what I want to do. Or I'd like you to introduce me to a couple of people. Or I want to come work at your place. But I'll ask somebody, well, what do you want to do? And they'll just look at me like, well, what do you mean? I said, well, I know what you have done, but what do you want to do? And they have no clue what they want to do. So you can't really go get a job or go be an attractive candidate until you know where your passion is, or until you're willing to express a curiosity for passion for something.
Yeah, and people absolutely matter. If you want to go to work for Rakie's agency, it doesn't hurt to spend a little time stalking her on the Facebook to see if you know anybody who is common. My son is a recruiter. He recruits dentists around the world. And the one of the key things they do when they get started is they find out where the dentist's wife is from and see if there's an opening at a practice there. And then they can reach out and say, hey, I know that you have family connections in San Antonio. We have this great practice opportunity there. And that's a lot better than, hey, you're looking for a job, because most people aren't, and a lot of people aren't necessarily looking for employees, but, see if there's a connection that can help you with that.
Yeah. And we're stalking you too. So you send in a resume, we're going to look you up. And so if you've got rude stuff on your LinkedIn page,
Not creepy at all.
better scrub that fast.
Awesome. Well, I see what we're kind of wrapping up here at the end of the hour. So I guess we'll just kind of move into our last phase of things and just say, first of all, thank you so much for coming and sharing your experiences. This is so valuable for so many people. Just appreciate your time today. It means the world to us, Add2 especially, just everybody. So thank you. This is where, you get to do your not so shameful plugs. If you've got anything going on, if you want to promote anything you're working on, just say, anything, hi to a family member, you'll send this recording to them, anything like that. You guys are so humble. Come on.
No shameless plugs. That's unusual coming from 3 admin.
I have to let my dog back in, but I do have a shameless plug in.
Oh, look at that marketing tease. So I'll do the insert. My shameless plug is like Todd. I'm a writer. The book 40 West is here, but up there is called Turning Tables. everything I needed to know about business I learned as a server, and it ties in the lessons from hospitality with business. And it's coming out September 30th. So I'm kind of excited about that. So you can follow me on social media. They are making me do a bunch of social media stuff, and I'm really uncomfortable with it, but I'm making the best of it. So there's that. Now back to you, Todd.
All right, I did stick.
One up me, my man.
Yeah. I did stick in the chat the link to a documentary I did a few years ago called Shine that I think you'll find interesting. It's the advertising history of the Roanoke Valley. Bill Houck is in it, and it was something that I did as a labor of love because I just realized all my mentors were dying, and it was. And Bill talked about his dad, and it's some really good opportunities. I'm very beholden to Matt, who helped me actually get the premiere together at the Matt Brown, who helped me get the premiere together at the Grand, and he did just a magnificent job. But I think you'll, at very worst, find it interesting. It's got some of the old jingles and whatnot in it. And I'm semi-planning. Next year is, I think, the 10th anniversary, and I'm semi-planning on doing a one-time only Grand and showing again next year.
Definitely, Todd. We'll look forward to hearing from you.
Right. Well, yeah, I think we had a few other announcements in the chat from the AAF, especially. They have a webinar next week. So focusing more a little bit on AI, everyone, I encourage you to go check that out. They totally didn't copy our idea or anything today. But yeah, just thank you all for being here today. We so appreciate it and hope you learned a little something. We'll make sure that this recording goes back out to y'all. If you want to share it around with your peers, anybody who might benefit from this, please feel free to send it their way. We'll be sure to have this circulating through Ad2. And yeah, just thank you all again for being here.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you all. It's been a pleasure.
Thanks for having us. Yeah.
Thank you, guys.
Appreciate it.